This is the longest road trip I have taken in a while. I'm headed to Miami. My friend Greg is a lawyer, and I help him make social media content. He had a law conference in Miami, and he said he would take care of our fancy hotel honeymoon suite if I just got myself down there. It seemed like a great opportunity to take photos and eat good food and, hang out with my friend or whatever. So after a summer of flying and delays, I basically said, suck it, air travel. I've got a Toyota Tacoma. And for those who don't realize how far Miami is from where I actually live, it's really not that bad. It's like a 10 to 12 hour drive, depending on which route you end up taking. Headed to Miami, I would take the long way because I'd be stopping in South Georgia to see family. Well, namely my mother, who turned out wasn't there. I just showed up to her house, and on the front door there was a sign that said, "Sorry, loser," which I didn't really think was very nice. But my first day would be spent in Georgia, driving the length of the state. And this is a route I've taken many times. So I traveled through the sea of swirly, twirly gumdrops in Elberton, Georgia, which is the granite capital of the world. And this would be the Polaroid i2's time to shine. I blew it with the second photo because this was before I realized that the Polaroid i2's auto mode needs to be backed off by minus 2/3 of a stop in broad daylight. You can watch my last video to hear all about that. This one turned out okay, though. Oh, and look at that. I blew it again. The first day, I pretty much went Polaroid only. And I say that because I did shoot photos with my Nikon FE on a roll of Lomography's Lady Gray 400 black and white film. But I forgot to get it developed. I accidentally somehow left it out of the batch of film I sent off from this Miami trip. So who knows when I'll see those. And quite honestly, you probably never will. So is what it is. But calm down. It's fine. I got some good Polaroid ones. The next town I stopped in was Greensboro, Georgia, which is the marble capital of the world. I'm just kidding. There are a lot of rich people, though, that like to hang out there, and, rich people like marble. So quick story about Greensboro. I used to come here a lot for the Small Town Photo Project, and this is where I shot one of my favorite and most popular photos from that era of my work. And it was a shot of this overgrown storefront that had a bunch of palms and greenery sticking out of it that looks really cool and dramatic. But as you can see, it's been kind of cleaned up, which is a bummer, except for the fact that now no one can copy my shot, so that's kind of cool. But I decided to get a Polaroid version of the spot, which I think turned out really neat. I really like the vibe of this shot, and honestly, it took a couple tries because I don't fully trust the light meter on the Polaroid i2 yet when shooting in manual, but I'd say 1 out of 3 were good odds. So like a little over $6 to get this image. And of course, I made sure to shoot a couple more blown out shots on the way out. So Greensboro is only like 2.5 hours from my house, and I had left at 8 a.m., but it was quickly approaching noon, so I was taking my sweet time to get down to South Georgia, so I kind of had to book it from here. A lot of podcasts later, I made it to Thomasville, where I broke out the Nikon FE and shot photos that you will never see. But I did get a couple of very cool Polaroids of one of the courthouse and the other of the big oak. I think this turned out to be a very cool double exposure. And I shot these, of course, on black and white Polaroid film, and so they look really nice now, but I'm sure they will turn orange here soon, as all black and white Polaroid photos that I have shot seem to do. And there's nothing like getting a beer with a friend after a day on the road. Really though, beer just tastes better after spending hours in a 2004 truck that feels like it's punching you in the back and glutes the whole way. And I struggle to sleep when road tripping for whatever reason, so I just went to bed early to prepare for the next 7.5 hour leg of the trip the next day. I got up early the next day so I could get some caffeine and get some work done at the local coffee shop in downtown Thomasville. But once that was done, it was time to journey into Florida. I just want to say, I like Florida. I lived there when I was young, and fun fact, I was actually born there. Something about Florida feels comforting to me. I feel connected to like the earth there. And also, this isn't my first Florida road trip over the past few years. I went to Florida 3 years ago, almost exactly to the day of this Miami trip, for the Small Town Photo Project. Deep into COVID, me and my friend Woody drove all night from South Carolina to reach the Florida coast by sunrise, kind of near Jacksonville. And it turned out to be a crazy gamble, because if the weather was bad, the sunrise would have sucked and we would have stayed up all night driving for nothing. But it turned out to be amazing and totally worth it. This is back when I was just wielding a Nikon D850 and shooting a ton of landscapes all the time. But this road trip, I'd be shooting film exclusively. Brought my darkroom tote bag that I wanted at Atlanta Film Stock and loaded it up with film. I was ready to rock. It wasn't long before I crossed into Florida. Where I was in Georgia, it was about an hour-ish from the Florida border, so it wasn't long before I passed into a rest stop and took celebratory photos of the Florida border. Again, these ended up being a little blown out because I hadn't quite gotten my Polaroid i2 skills up to par at the beginning of this trip, but I feel like these are the types of photos that Polaroids are for. It doesn't have to be art. It's kind of also in capturing a memory, and those two can bleed together, obviously, but, you know, it just, snapshots is kind of what is fun to do with Polaroid cameras. Florida has pretty good rest stop game, by the way. I stopped in this rest stop around Gainesville, Florida, and it had this weird swirly overlook that allowed you to look at the majestic flatness of the land and also the interstate. And again, I remember shooting with my Nikon FE at this rest stop, but I guess they're on the Lomography Lady Gray roll because I don't remember seeing them after they got developed. So I guess you're not gonna see any 35mm photos until we get to Miami, apparently. So I'm in Orlando now, so I'm deep in the heart of Florida at the moment. I stopped at the nicest rest stop I've ever been to just now. It's like one of these kind of European, you drift left and you're kind of in between the turnpike there, about to go get gas. Just had a Wendy's cheeseburger is about all I could find in there. Got some almonds for the rest of the drive. And yeah, nothing crazy. Just been chill. Just been stopping at rest stops. I'm about 4 hours from Miami at this point. So I've driven about 3.5, give or take. So I'm about halfway. And yeah, it's just listening to podcasts, music, just hanging out. So it's a pretty decent drive, beautiful weather. I imagine by the end of this, I will be done with travel for the day. I will not want to go anywhere else. But yeah, you know, doing trips by myself is fun. I think today's kind of the limit for me where it's enjoyable to travel alone. I'll get there tonight. I'll meet up with Greg while he's texting me. He's flying to Miami. He's texting me how great the Delta Lounge is and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm at a rest stop in Orlando eating Wendy's. So, but yeah, I just think that once I get through today's trip, it'll be a lot easier. And then I'll have Greg on the way back. So it'll be a little easier from here. Today's kind of the hardest day of travel to me. Okay, so I made it to the hotel, and yeah, I can't believe I drove here. I can't believe I drove to Miami today. Yeah, it's a nice room. Yeah, Greg hooked us up with like a nice room. It's an odd phenomenon, driving 12 hours, going on a road trip somewhere, and then pulling up at a super fancy nice hotel, looking like you drove 12 hours somewhere. Like I feel gross. I've been sitting in my 04 Tacoma for 2 days straight. And then I walk into this like high-end hotel where, you know, you pull up to the valet and it's just like Porsche, Maserati, Ferrari, and then my piece of crap truck. But yeah, this is pretty nice. Man, what a relief to get here. I guess the world is my oyster today. I'm probably just gonna like get a beer, maybe walk around a little bit. Take some pics. Today in black and white Polaroids with my signature green corners on all of them. But yeah, so yeah, drove through Florida. Shot black and white Polaroids. Cool. Got some black frames going. Black frames are the best. So after walking around Coral Gables a little bit and getting the lay of the land, I sat down at the hotel bar for a beer. This one tasted even better than the last one because I was about 3 times more tired than the day before. But I still had enough strength to wait till nightfall to take one of my favorite film stocks for a spin, Lomo 800. Also, I just want to say that this hotel is like way fancier than I'm accustomed to, like for real. So don't see me at this place and think this is just like what I do. Also, super weird thing about this hotel, it was built in like a straight up neighborhood. This giant castle Vegas casino structure is just right next door to houses like mine, like 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just regular homes. Even weirder is that when they built this place, which was apparently pretty recently, apparently not everyone wanted to give up their home, and the hotel is literally built around a small house. So right across from the entrance, next to the valet, is just a house. Just a regular house in front of this hotel compound. Anyway, day 2 was complete. I was toast, so I passed out pretty fast that night. The next day started with an Uber ride downtown where I was required to pass a dungeon wisdom test in order to go any farther. I've been to Miami before, but mostly just South Beach, and I gotta say, downtown Miami is very cool and very photogenic. Except it was a little cloudy that day. It's kind of rainy, gloomy, so I feel like a lot of these shots reflect a little bit of a gloominess to them. I'm a big fan of Miami architecture. I feel like most architects in the modern day must be pretty dead inside because based on the new houses and buildings I see built nowadays, they're either like a sci-fi dystopian box or a house that looks like a stark white warehouse with some wood accents to make it look homey, but modern architecture kind of sucks. But a lot of Miami architecture has like these bizarre aesthetic choices, like a random hole in between two sides of a building, or a building that just wants to be boxy and reflect the sky. And why? Who cares? It's Miami. Well, our friend Greg, who I eventually meet up with on this trip, told me that he met a guy at the hotel bar who said, "This isn't America, this is Miami." Miami has its own character and really doesn't care what you think at all. There's something beautiful about that. Honestly, out of all the major cities in the US that I've been to, and I've been to most of them this year actually, I feel like I could definitely live in Miami. There's just so much going on. I love it. Also, partially because I have an obsession with palm trees. Probably because I started off my photography career living in Hawaii. But for double exposures especially, palm trees have an extremely eye-catching look. I've been wanting to make a photo book for a while, but I struggle to figure out kind of what the theme would be, and I think one of my first photo books would probably be a palm tree related thing. Now, I don't live near palm trees. I live near the mountains, so go figure. But I love palm trees so much, I probably need to go out of my way to shoot them more often. So yeah, I basically spent a lot of my day walking around downtown Miami and the Riverwalk and through the buildings taking photos. That is until I got hungry and decided to grab a slice, at which time it decided to pour rain. So photos were pretty much done for the day at that point. At least until nightfall, when I got to try to channel Todd Hido, I guess. But not really, because I suck at that style of photography. I've always shot film and photos kind of in a bubble, kind of just doing my own thing. And the deeper I've gotten into film photography YouTube, the more I've realized that it's pretty common for film photographers to explore just like regular neighborhoods and take photos. And I just never thought to do that. And it's kind of an interesting exercise, and it was really cool to just walk through these streets around the Coral Gables area at night.
Following me around, cat? You know, just a neighborhood cat following me around next to the giant, luxurious castle that's just plopped in the neighborhood. Are you chasing me out? You want me to leave? Okay, I get it, man. I'll go, I'm sorry. I'll leave you alone.
Since I was staying in this luxury castle conveniently located amongst regular just homes, I decided to try my hand at that genre of photography. And I got a couple images I ended up liking. This one's cool because of the architecture, but mostly because of the plant in the window. And I like the eeriness of the streetlights in these photos. The Lomo 800 is such an incredible film stock for these kinds of images. The next day, after getting bacon grease all over my laptop keyboard at breakfast, we made our way to Wynwood, which is the art district of Miami. So we started by going to the Wynwood Walls. And for a place consumed with street art and street artists, I thought it was funny that to leave the Wynwood Walls, you actually had to exit through the gift shop. So of course, after we went to the Wynwood Walls, we had some more beer, which apparently this trip was turning into the longest I have ever driven for a beer run ever. And then Greg found this really amazing restaurant nearby in the Wynwood area, and it was delicious. We had an appetizer of alligator bites and, of course, more beer. We needed to walk off all this food and alcohol, so we ended up going to South Beach, and we walked about nearly 2 miles on the South Beach boardwalk.
Yeah, we're really walking, we're really like far away.
Yeah, I know.
We've walked almost a mile. This is a bad place to have an Uber let us off.
I started shooting some Kodak Color Plus here because I figured that would work really well for the Art Deco colors and pastels of Miami Beach. And that wouldn't be the only 2 miles I walked that day. Later that night, after we had dinner at a popular Cuban establishment near our hotel, I decided to walk back because the light was really nice. And so I loaded up some Lomo 800 and made my way back through neighborhoods and buildings again and had a really great time. But I did end up getting kind of lost.
So that was weird. My GPS sent me through this weird exclusive neighborhood. It was very odd. Everybody was looking at me like I wasn't allowed to be there. I have no idea where I am.
And that wouldn't be the first time this week I ended up walking around in like a neighborhood I shouldn't have been. A couple days ago when I was walking around in downtown Miami, I stumbled upon this road and I started walking down, and this very friendly, to be fair, security guard stopped me and said, "Hey, listen, the residents of here will freak out if they see you walking around with a camera." She was like, "You could take photos with your iPhone all you want, but if you're walking around with a camera, you're gonna freak people out." Again, she was very nice. But I didn't come on this trip to shoot, hashtag iPhone only, so I decided to just turn around and go somewhere else.
We took an Uber to the place I started walking, and I haven't seen any of this. It says I'm super close to my hotel, but it says I'll be there in like 5 minutes. But my hotel is like a gleaming castle. You can see from anywhere, I don't see it. I've also never been here, never walked past here, so I have no clue what's going on. But it's cool. Wild. I think that's my gleaming castle. That's cool. Yep, there it is.
Around when I started to finish the roll of Lomo 800 was when I started to hit a wall of being kind of done with this trip. I had been shooting tons of photos, been walking around a lot. I had driven over 12 hours to get there, and I was just done. I was getting exhausted. I'm not really sure necessarily what genre of photography I'd put my work in, but I really like scenes, and I feel like walking around in these neighborhoods, you get a lot of those. I don't shoot portraits very often, but I do like people in my photos when they are pieces on the board. So I like people in the scenes. I don't necessarily focus on the people themselves, but I like when they show up. So I think this type of photography, when you walk around neighborhoods and cities and who knows, shopping centers, I guess, having just scenes of real life is really interesting to me. And also when I mix double exposures, scenes that don't really feel like they are real life. They feel like surreal, magical lands. But after this last walk, I was done. I was pretty much done taking photos. There's usually this point when you go on these trips where you kind of burn out, where you're kind of done. And this was the point where I was done. Also, the next day I had to get home by a certain time because I'd be traveling somewhere else a couple days later. I'll save that for another video. It was time to head back. It was time to head home. So we blazed back home the next day, and when you go up I-95, there's just a point where there's just nothing. There's nothing going on. There's really nothing to do as you drive up Florida until you get to about Jacksonville, Georgia kind of area, and then it just turns to nothing again. So apparently road trips to Florida are where I make big realizations as a photographer. The first Florida trip I took made me realize that I just love taking road trips and taking photos, and that's kind of all I want to do with my life. And then this Florida trip kind of solidified the types of photography that I really love to do the most. And I think I finally found this happy marriage between the work I shoot and film. I've gone back and forth through film and digital over the years, having different seasons with each. Honestly, mirrorless cameras kind of killed my love for digital photography because they're just too good, and I just love the limits of film. And I also love that even after shooting photos for 15 years that I shoot film and I can really screw stuff up, and it feels like I'm still learning new things, and it's still just utterly fascinating, and it's just way more fun to shoot film than digital at this point. I feel like every time you go on a trip like this, or try new types of photography, there are little pieces from each thing that kind of stick with you, and all those things mix together into the soup of who you are. The last Florida trip I took, and the Small Town Photo Project, and all the work I've done before really informed how I shoot photos this trip, and this trip's gonna inform the way I shoot photos from here on out. Just sponges, picking up stuff along the way, and the stuff that is really meaningful to us tends to stick with us and makes us the artists that we are. So I think it's not about the gear, it's not about the film stocks really, it's about the experiences that we take on. It's about the things we do that really adds up to what we create. Gear and the film stocks just help us capture what we're looking to capture. So anyways, if you made it to the end of this somehow, go follow me on Instagram at Will Malone, and you can follow my Polaroid Instagram account at RoidRage72. And please subscribe if you want to see more videos about me driving long distances to drink beer.